Driven by Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, it's time to move over because Ghostbusters could be blasting its way to Universal. Hello everybody, welcome. After years of trying to fix Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, it is finally getting the axe. And we've got brand new details on what might just be replacing it. It has been years since rumors emerged about Rip Ride Rockit going away at Universal Studios in Orlando. I even did a video on it months ago speculating a little bit about what we might be getting in its place, including one of my speculations was a Ghostbusters attraction. Well, it looks like it might finally be coming to fruition. We know that Universal has been putting everything possible into the success of Epic Universe and its opening, and as a result, a lot of the existing parks like Universal and Islands of Adventure have sort of taken a backseat and not a lot of things have been happening. A lot of things have been shutting down and being removed from the parks, but not a lot of things have been being added back in. So they've been putting everything into Epic Universe. But now that Epic Universe is finally opening and making some revenue for the company, by the way, fantastic park, you gotta see it if you haven't been there. I'm really looking forward to what Universal has up and in store for us next for their existing parks and even brand new parks like the Universal Kids Resort and the UK park that's gonna be coming. And now it looks like a formal replacement for Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit is going to be one of the very first things that we get now that they're able to focus back on the existing parks. It has been formally announced that Rip Ride Rockit is closing on August 18th of 2025. So if you are a fan of that coaster, you're going to want to get your trip in before August because it is going to be gone forever. Now this has me really excited about the prospect of a new coaster or some sort of new attraction, but on the other hand, it also has me going, wait, what? We just created Epic Universe. We bought all that new land. We're expanding. They created a brand new back of the house over at Epic Universe so that they could replace some of the back of the house at Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure and create more space for new attractions at those existing parks. And one of the very first things that we get from Universal is that they're replacing an attraction. Wait, what's going on? Why are we replacing something instead of adding something? Well, there is a big reason for that. Let's just talk about that really briefly so you understand. I mean, this is a fairly iconic ride, opened in 2009, very popular at the time, and it still is a popular ride today. However, even since opening day of this attraction, it's had major problems. It's had issues with not being able to run enough cars on it. It's a very rough experience if you've ever ridden it. I mean, it's one of the very few rides that actually I white out on because it's so rough. And the location of this attraction is literally in a wind tunnel between a bunch of the big sound stages and buildings and the old Blue Man Group building. So the new attraction is going to have to contend with that same issue about wind tunnel. So it has that problem. It's got it going against it, which is why a lot of times the attraction is shut down even though it looks like a beautiful day out, because if there's high winds between 15 miles an hour and 25 miles an hour, depending on how cold it is out, the entire ride will be shut down. And just so you get an idea of how painful and how disruptive and difficult this attraction is and has been for Universal, they say that it has cost them roughly 6 times the amount of money to keep the ride running as it costs to build it. In other words, that ride from the very beginning has been busted. So it is time for it to go. Even though it's a fun attraction, it's just insane how much money they've had to dump into this thing. They just can't keep it going anymore. It's time for it to go. So of course that leads us to what are we getting in its place. Now, we're going to get into a little bit of speculation, but also a lot of information that we've gotten here. So the very first thing is it is very likely to be an Intamin roller coaster. We know that Universal has an order for an Intamin coaster. Speculation is it is going to be in this location here in Universal Studios. It could be somewhere else. They could do something else with this space. But very likely with the order that we've got, all the permits that we're seeing, it is going to be this new Intimmen coaster. If you're not familiar with Intimmen, they have done a lot of amazing coasters and just hit after hit after hit for Universal. Jurassic World Velocicoaster is Intimmen. Also the brand new Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift that is coming out there in Universal Hollywood. That is also an Intimmen coaster. Hiccup's Wing Glider's brand new attraction over at Epic Universe. Of course, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, very popular attraction. Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts. Back to the Future, The Ride, little throwback there, and the Simpsons attraction. Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem, E.T. Adventure. Hello, one of my favorite rides of all time. Also the Jaws attraction and even some Disney attractions like Raging Spirits, Incredicoaster, Cali River Rapids, and one of my all-time favorite Disney attractions, which is also ironically going away, Dinosaur. Now, a lot of people have been talking about what are we going to be getting, and they've been talking about some of the off-the-shelf or some of the coasters that Intamin has been building. I don't know that we are going to get an off-the-shelf coaster or something that they've already been working on or building, because historically Universal has used Intamin for the manufacturing and building of the coasters, but Universal themselves has designed the coaster. That way we end up with something much cooler, like maybe a Hagrid's. So let's talk a little bit about what we could end up getting there and what we're talking about with Ghostbusters. So the first thing that makes it very obvious that they could put in that space is a Minions coaster or another Minions attraction, because they have this entire Minions land and it's essentially tied and connected to that space. So we could do another Minions attraction. I, however, am going to say a big no on this, a big hard pass, I don't think that's happening. Yes, it's near there. I think we got enough Minions, if I'm being honest. Hopefully you all feel the same way. I don't want to see anything else there. I don't think it's happening. We could also get another Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift style coaster. This would make a lot of sense because it would allow them to get rid of Fast and Furious The Ride back there in the back of the park that nobody likes, is straight up busted, while still keeping the Fast and Furious moniker in Universal Studios in Orlando. So they could do a Fast and Furious coaster there and then get rid of that space over there and build something new in that current Fast and Furious. That would make sense. However, I don't know that they are going to want to pull another Fast and Furious drift type coaster immediately over to Universal in Orlando, since they already have a brand new one being built in Hollywood. Doesn't make sense to me for them to just kind of copy that over so soon after Epic Universe opening and our first big attraction. The footprint of that Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift is also very different from the space that we have to play in, so I just don't know that it's going to end up being that. Which means it could be something totally different, something very new. What could it be? Let's talk a little bit about some of their big IPs. They have been leaning into some of their classic, amazing IPs that they have. You've got Back to the Future, you've got Jaws, and you've got Ghostbusters. They've been bringing all those classic IPs back to the forefront, and I am definitely here for it. Let's look at the mega movie parade that they brought into Universal. It's got Jaws, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future. People have been going crazy over it. People have just been absolutely excited. They love those classic movies and films and IPs being brought back to life. It has really been popular for them. We've also got the sensational water and drone and fireworks show there. They brought all three of those IPs back as well, and people just get so cranked. I'm telling you, I think the Ghostbusters section of Sensational, when that music comes on, might be the most spectacular moment of that entire show. I literally get goosebumps. People love it. We also had those classic IPs return in the Tribute store last year. It had all those in there. People were super excited. Picture opportunities, everything. Loving it. They've got the Jaws 50th anniversary going on right now. They also brought Ghostbusters as a house to Halloween Horror Nights. People loved it. They thought it was one of the greatest houses. The popularity of these IPs is just soaring right now. The nostalgia, bringing back those old IPs, is going like crazy with them. So I think Universal is starting to realize that there's a lot of love for those older IPs, and that the popularity of those IPs is still very high. But could we be getting a Back to the Future attraction there? Absolutely, it could fit there. I am going to say no, because we are definitely getting Back to the Future in the Universal UK park. I talk about that in my video. I'll link to that below if you're interested in what's going into that UK park. I've got a lot of information about the IPs that are going to be there. Back to the Future looks like it is definitely one of them. So I don't know that they're going to want to do a Back to the Future in Orlando. And then Ghostbusters. talking specifically about that, has new films. They just did 3 new films, one with all-female cast, which I personally love. Also, the 2 new films that they did, and potentially a new Ghostbusters film on the horizon. So even though it's still a very loved IP, it is still going. They have a lot of history using Ghostbuster in their parks in the past. Obviously, you know Ecto 1, the Ghostbusters have been seen in the parks in the past and even now. Also, they had a Spooktacular. That was a Ghostbusters show that ran from like the 1990s to 1996. Pretty popular show, really cool effects at the time. They even had the Ghostbusters Firehouse as part of Universal there in the New York area that you could actually see. Is really cool. I've got a shot of it right here, and they have that firehouse. It still exists today. It's just not the Ghostbusters Firehouse. They ended up repurposing that firehouse, and now Rip Ride Rockit goes directly through that firehouse. But it is still there technically. So a Ghostbusters attraction just makes total sense. So it looks like that's what we're going to end up getting. I think they're going to end up using that firehouse and repurposing it for a new entrance into the Ghostbusters attraction, removing the entrance area from where Rip Ride Rockit is today and moving it back into the New York section. So obviously Ghostbusters makes sense in New York. The firehouse there, you could easily see that being transformed into an entrance, a main facade building into the Ghostbusters attraction. They even have walls up now around that particular area, and there is some really cool like Easter egg type signage that's sort of indicating we could be getting Ghostbusters coming back here into this area. The signage basically refers to restoration of the Engine 89 firehouse. So everything is just pointing more and more towards this being a Ghostbusters attraction. Now, what will it look like? What could the coaster end up being? I want to throw in this concept that's from the Sparkling Eagle. I love it. They did some really cool stuff here. I'm not saying this is what we're going to end up getting, but this is kind of a cool taste of what we could be getting, some sort of cool roller coaster. What I love what the Sparkling Eagle did in this concept is it kept it very low to the ground. It doesn't have a lot of like very high points in the actual coaster design, and I think that makes a lot of sense given the whole wind tunnel issue that we were talking about. If you think about that giant spire there on Rip Ride Rockit being part of a wind tunnel, lots of issues there, having to shut it down, makes sense that they're trying to take into account that wind tunnel and keep things lower to the ground so they won't have as much wind issues. But overall, I'm just loving seeing this like concept come to life. I don't know what we're going to end up getting. I'd love to see something similar to this. But if you look at the information around the Intimmen coaster, it will be a multi-launch, multi-inversions coaster. So it should be very intense, like a Velocicoaster. We could also end up getting some sort of drift coaster as well, like a Guardians of the Galaxy or the new Hollywood Drift there coming. We could also get a dark ride here, maybe some sort of dark ride or blaster or shooter type game like Men in Black. I don't think we're going to get that. I think that does not make a lot of sense in there. They need another big ride in this park. It is missing a heavy hitter park. I think most people feel like Islands of Adventure is better than Universal Studios because of so many bigger like thrill rides. Obviously, if you are more of a low-key chill person, you think Universal Studios is going to be better. But I do think that Universal Studios needs a heavy hitter attraction. And they don't have it right now. The closest being maybe Mummy, which is an older attraction. It's seen better days. They need something big, fast, crazy in this park. I think it's going to be this Ghostbusters Intamin roller coaster. So that's all I've got for you. What do you think? Are you excited about the prospect of a Ghostbusters roller coaster coming to Universal Studios? I hope you are, because it sounds awesome to me. Maybe some sort of like Ecto 1 vehicle, or maybe even like a drifting Ecto 1 vehicle. I think it would be cool for a ride system. Love to hear from you in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and if you know what else it might be going in there, love to hear from you. Put it down in the comments. Thanks again so much for watching. Until I see you next time, the noble way is the easy way. Bye-bye, everybody.